against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Yo, welcome to Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one resource for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, current breaking news, culture, dramatic warfare. We will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Simply Bitcoin, the most watched daily Bitcoin only live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. We have a lot to talk about today. Specifically, huge news. The second largest bank in Europe has now bought Bitcoin. Well, they didn't buy real Bitcoin. They bought captured Bitcoin. They bought the ETF, but I think this is going to cause a domino effect. Why? Because this bank, and hopefully I can pronounce it correctly, the name, it's a French bank, and the name of the bank is Paribas. Now they have the cheat code. Now they have the competitive advantage, right? If they have exposure to Bitcoin, now all of a sudden that bank is more competitive than every other bank that does not have exposure to Bitcoin, right? It's kind of like game theory playing out, right? Like the Vanguard CEO initially saying, you know, hey, we're just not going to offer Bitcoin to our clients. And then a month later, he announces his resignation. So anyone who adopts a Bitcoin standard, whether that's an individual, a nation state, a corporation, whatever, you have a massive advantage over anyone who has not adopted a Bitcoin standard, or has, better said, does not have any exposure to Bitcoin. So again, in terms of Bitcoin's history, another huge milestone. And again, the further legitimization of this asset in the eyes of the traditional, financial system, the, financial elites, right? Really. Right. This is a big deal, right? Hong Kong ETF approval, US ETF approval, and now Europe's second largest bank has bought Bitcoin, whether, it's indirectly, but they bought exposure to Bitcoin. So absolutely massive deal. Also, in other news, we're going to continue the coverage on the attack, the battle for self-custody in the United States of America. David Bailey tweeted something out very interesting this morning. We're going to cover it, but I'm also going to connect it with two videos from Jack Mallers and his father in terms of, the right to privacy, the right to self-custody. We showed you guys Cynthia Lummis, the Bitcoin senator coming out of Wyoming. She was trying to get ahead of it, basically saying like, look, guys, the fact that they're trying to label non-custodial software money transmitters is a very, very slippery slope. Now, before you get a little bit too worried, you have to understand we've been here before, right? In the early 90s, there's something called the crypto wars. It's not cryptocurrency, not unrelated to that, but essentially in the early 90s, the crypto war was basically the fact that now, the populace had this ability to have unhackable cryptography. Like the government couldn't get access to the data if they didn't have the private key for it. It was called the PGP wars. Eventually that we won that war. They didn't win because clearly, there's massive access to PGP technology. Now, of course, PGP never went mainstream, but the government lost that fight. Right. So I think we're going through a very similar kind of moment in history. But it is also, very interesting because it's like it reveals, it exposes incentives. Like the idea that somehow a government or a nation state is not okay with you, writing down 12 words or 24 words, or you having the ability to hold unconfiscatable, undebasable wealth, really kind of exposes how they feel about you. Like, to be blunt and frank, like that's the reality. Like, and honestly, guys, like it's really not that cool. And then I'll kind of connect the dots, which we tend to do on Simply Bitcoin. as it relates to, this is a combined effort, right? You had Roger Ver, you know, the one of the original Bitcoin OGs. He kind of went to the dark side with the whole Bitcoin Cash thing, but he was nabbed in Spain around the same day that the Binance founder was sentenced to 4 months in prison. CZ is going to be the wealthiest man ever to serve a prison sentence. So, you know, I get it. They're altcoiners. I get what, you know, you might not necessarily agree with what they're doing, but if you're taking sides with the state and you're celebrating the arrest of the sentencing of CZ, or you're celebrating the arrest of Roger Ver, like, you're lost in the sauce and you're not paying attention to what's in front of you, the battle that's in front of you. And the battle is the right for an American citizen to take self-custody of unconfiscatable, undebasable wealth. That's the battle at hand. We've been telling you for over a year, right since they started with the whole Tornado Cash thing. It was incredibly obvious, at least to me, that this was the inevitable outcome. Now, this is not a coincidence that this is happening the year of an election. This is not a coincidence that this is happening after the halving. Now, Bitcoin's forward inflation rate is lower than any other fiat currency or gold on the planet. So again, like that, all of that are there. One of my favorite quotes, and I always say all this time on the show, which is, there are no conspiracies, but there is also no coincidences. And, you know, this is all very symbolic that all these things are happening. You know, the Samurai Wallet dev arrested, the Tornado Cash motion to dismiss, the CZ getting sentenced, Roger Ver getting, arrested. They are going after self-custody in the US because it is a clear and present danger to the existing system of control of money, and also the monopoly on the issuance of money as well. So we're going to talk about all that. It's going to be a great show. No more delay. Do want to let up my Derek co-host. He is always optimistic. That's why they call him Optimus Fields. How you doing, Opti?
I am doing wonderful, man. It's another day in paradise. Life is great. Everything's going wonderful in the Bitcoin land. We are definitely heating up. And man, it's super interesting that we finally see a huge bank get some exposure to Bitcoin. Considering everything going on in the world, man, it just feels so good being a Bitcoiner. We're just out here winning. The more they attack us, the more I know we are right. But one little point to put a little bow tie on what you were saying. You know, it's becoming very obvious that there is a two-tiered justice system, and we are not a part of it. And man, it really makes you think. Like the rule of law is completely unhinged from the rhetoric and reality. But this is where we are right now, guys. This is the time of the movie. This is the current state of the world. And I think it's kind of, I mean, Nico, when we heard this news the other day, you literally called me and you're like, yo, are you ready? Like, buckle up, Buttercup. Like, things are starting to heat up. So I think, as you said, this is one of the most important times in Bitcoin. And I think the next year or two is going to be, if not the most important time in Bitcoin, but besides maybe the actual creation of Bitcoin, but one of the most important epochs in the Bitcoin ecosystem, in the Bitcoin history. It's like the time is now, guys. This is when we really got to buckle down, make sure people are understanding why we do Bitcoin, why they need to hold their own keys, because things are getting crazy, man. Clown world is accelerating. So on that note, though, let's accelerate and just get the final battle over so Bitcoin can very clearly prove that it is the one, that this is the way. And we're just winning so hard.
We're winning, bro. That's why they're doing all this, is because we're winning. Absolutely. Anyways, I do want to bring up a very special guest for today. We got Anders. Anders, how you doing, man? Anders is famous for the Toxic Happy Hour spaces that originally started as a YouTube channel, which actually inspired Simply Bitcoin originally, the content that him and Pubby were making, and also the pleb party that was made famous during the Miami Bitcoin conference. So we're very happy to have Anders on the show today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Good to be here, Nico and Opti. Like I told you before the show, I have so much admiration for what you guys are doing with Simply Bitcoin. I do believe that you are the largest Bitcoin-only media platform today and fastest growing. You guys are killing it. You're doing it right. You have the right vision, and you got the passion to help this revolution, the peaceful revolution, where we can get rid of our overlords that just are sucking the lifeblood out of us. So yeah, thanks for having me.
100%, man. That's and appreciate those kind words. Absolutely. And yeah, man, it is like that. It's overlords, right? It really feels like that. Like, and again, like it wasn't always like this, guys. Like this is like a very recent occurrence. It's like, you know, I can't help but to think of the sovereign individual, one of the quotes, which is like, governments see, you know, their citizens like cattle. But now the internet has basically given the cattle wings, right? And that's really what's happening right here. You know, the disintermediation of money, the disintermediation of information, mass scale communications, and it's really kind of changing the ball game. And the fact is that the government wasn't prepared for, you know, the unintended consequences of the internet. And I think that's really what's happening. But this is the separation of money and state. After all, buckle up, take Bitcoin into self-custody, and we'll win. Anyways, before we jump into the show, I do want to give a very special shout out to the Bitcoin company that powers this show. And of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. It is self-custody by default, future-proof your money. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as your funds clear, it goes straight into self-custody, right? And after all, self-custody is the revolution, which means Bitcoin Well perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Guys, if you really want things to change, you want to support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps, we recommend bitcoinwell.com. Go to bitcoinwell.com simply to get started. Also, if you are a customer of Bitcoin Well in Canada, they recently announced their cash vouchers, which are now available to light accounts in the Bitcoin portal. Canadian customers can now buy Bitcoin with a Bitcoin Well account using cash vouchers, a payment rail designed to safely eliminate barriers to first-time Bitcoin Well customers. So if you're a Canadian customer of Bitcoin Well, go check out their cash vouchers program. It's an incredibly easy, it's a very frictionless way to stack Bitcoin. So go check out bitcoinwell.com/simply to get started today. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. All right, everybody, I made it incredibly easy for you guys to get yourself a Stampseed titanium seed phrase storage kit. All you got to do is scan the QR code on your screen. It will take you directly to the Stampseed website where you can use promo code simply to get 15% off. Don't put yourself in a situation where you have to explain to your grandchildren or your children why you lost your generational wealth because you decided to store your seed words on paper. Don't do it. Stamp it on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Get yourself a Stampseed seed phrase storage kit today. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $59,020. Block height, 841,801. Sats per dollar, 1,694. Market cap, 1.16 trillion. Bitcoin priced in gold, 25.7 ounces. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.36%. Percentage issued, 93.77. Decline from all-time high, 20%. That's a 20% discount. So stack those sats. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and get that 20% discount off those sweet, precious Satoshis. Forward monetary inflation, 0.85%. This is why they don't like it. This is why. 0.85%. Even if the Fed were to get the inflation rate back to its target of 2%, they don't even know why they have a 2% inflation rate. They can't even explain it. They're like, oh, well, I thought, this bank in New Zealand, and like they just said it and like whatever. Like the idea that money needs to have theft built into it to exist is insane. And they've psyoped the entire population. Not entire, like we're waking up now. There's a great awakening happening worldwide without a shadow of a doubt. But the fact that they've convinced people that somehow money needs to steal from you to function is absurd, right? And what Bitcoin is that's the first asset that you could put your purchasing power, your energy into, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Things are just going to get progressively cheaper over time. It actually protects your energy, your value, your time, right? And like Jeff Booth said it, right? With technology, it should make the world deflationary, meaning the world should get progressively cheaper. But the only asset that correctly reflects that is Bitcoin. That's why life gets cheaper on a Bitcoin standard. And if you're new to the show or you haven't experienced this, I promise you, promise is a very strong word. Go on a Bitcoin standard, wait at least 4 years. Don't do anything. Don't trade. Just continue to stack. And I promise you, your life will get better. Spiritually, financially, mentally, things change, right? Anyways, realized monetary inflation is 1.7%, right? That's what it was before the halving. But of course, that number continues to go down. When we first started covering that number, it was like 1.8 something. On Simply. So it's a very, very important number to keep aware of. And remember, this number is going to keep going down forever. It's going to continue to keep getting cut in half, further embarrassing fiat currencies. Anyways, David Bailey tweeted this out this morning, and it kind of confirmed some suspicions that what I was having. And my mindset and my train of thought for those suspicions is simple. Tornado Cash set the precedent. Less than a year later, they're arresting Bitcoin privacy developers, Bitcoin OGs, altcoin casino entrepreneurs, all around the same time. My question to you is, do you think they're just going to stop now? Do you think they're just going to pack it up and say, all right, we've done it? No, they're going to continue, obviously. Now, David Bailey, of course, he's a very well-connected person because he is the CEO and founder of BTC Inc. It is one of the oldest, I think it is the oldest, Bitcoin media organization. They've been around for a very long time. And they're the owners of Bitcoin Magazine, the Bitcoin Conference, and a bunch of other companies as well. So he's obviously a very well-connected individual. He's also a Bitcoin OG. He's been in the industry for a very long time. There's many connections. He went on to say, just got a call, another major Bitcoin company about to pull out of the USA. Wave of DOJ subpoenas inbound. Going to be a full-blown war over self-custody. They will lose, but we will have to fight for our rights. Get ready, right? Again, this isn't just a random, anon pleb on Twitter. This is someone that holds, and I know a lot of people dislike him, for a lot of the business decisions that he's made. But the reality is that, Bitcoin Magazine is the largest, most influential Bitcoin only media outlet in the space right now. And, he's an influential guy. You can't deny that. So, the fact that he's saying that, I think, is a big deal. Now, here's Jack Mallers. And I think it is the responsibility of every Bitcoin CEO and founder, basically anyone who has a platform. Even if you don't have a platform, it is your responsibility to speak up and stand up for your right. You have to say something, and it's working, right? Like we have, the Bitcoin Senator Cynthia Lummis. I showed you guys the tweet yesterday. I'll show it to you guys again. She came out and said, quote, "I am deeply troubled by the Department of Justice hyper-aggressive argument that non-custodial software can constitute a money transmission service. This stance contradicts existing Treasury guidance, common sense, and violates the rule of law. Arguments against self-custody software threaten fundamental property rights that are core to being an American. I will do everything I can to fight for your rights to hold your own keys and run your own node," which is utterly and absolutely absurd. Like, to be honest, like, that is crazy. That is nuts. I cannot believe that, right? That, you know, we live in this country that's supposed to be, you know, land of the free, home of the brave. And like, you know, they won't even allow you to hold, you know, write down a 12 to 24 word seed word. And of course, because it exposes the racket. Now, I do want to show Jack Mahler's take on this, and then we'll hear Jack Mahler's dad's take on this as well.
Privacy is a human right, in my opinion. Privacy, especially in a digital society, is foundational. We need to have the ability to select which parts of ourselves are available to the world. And without that, I don't believe that society is going to be able to function in a healthy way that allows for human flourishing. So things like freedom of speech and things like privacy have been a constant battle in the internet age, and we're likely seeing it again. And so it shouldn't have to be said out loud, unfortunately, but the reality is here we are. We need privacy in our speech. We need privacy in our transactions and in our monetary movement, period. That's just a point blank period, no matter who you are, where you are. That's just a fact. And so any attack on privacy is one that shouldn't be stood for by anyone, any group, any of us. And any violent gun to the head, get thrown in a box, in my opinion, is just one of the worst chapters of humanity. That's what we've resulted to as government, to punish bad behavior.
Very, very strong speech. Completely agree with Jack Mahler's take. Here is Jack Mahler's dad, who is extremely successful, I might add. He was a very successful individual. He worked in the traditional financial system. Let's hear his take.
No, I mean, if you want to influence, you know, behavior with tax policy, you know, obviously tax the hell out of cigarettes, right? A sin tax, gambling, right? You know, a frivolous. But, you know, when you start taxing capital formation, I mean, I don't know what the end game of that thought is. And not just increase it, but like, you know, double it. Like I said, it's, I'm trying to think of, it would have to be almost like when you went to the polls when I was getting out of high school, it was like, you can agree or disagree with 8 out of 10 policy stances, but the one thing you were voting on is whether you wanted your kid to go to Vietnam or not, right? It was like a single issue domination. And I don't know if you're in the financial markets, this upcoming one can't be starker. I mean, there's the current administration wants to double the IRS over a period of 10 years. I mean, this isn't just let's crack down a little bit and clean house on some of these. I mean, this is almost just a nationalization of a brand new financial industry, really, with that degree of IRS involvement. I mean, it's like I said, I'm trying to find an analogy. It's not quite. I don't think your vote has quite the importance it did when the country was in war, but financially, this one's going to have a lot of implications.
So a couple things, right? So Jack Mahler is talking about privacy. Again, they're attacking privacy first. Eventually, it's going to come after self-custody. I think we lost the whole privacy aspect of that. The Coin Center, that lawsuit was just dismissed. Now it's come to self-custody. But again, the idea that you can't self-custody your Bitcoin, the idea that you can't have money without the government knowing what you have, is absurd, and it's completely against the Fourth Amendment. Like, it's like, don't worry, keep your bathroom door open. Like we won't look. And then what Jack Mallers' dad is referring to is this election that's coming up, which I hated the fact that I tweeted this, and I went back and forth with Opti for a long time. I'm like, dude, I know this is going to blow up, but I'm going to say it anyways. And again, I'm not taking any type of political stance, but what Jack Mallers' father is referring to is this upcoming election. And the stark reality of it is that the current administration has been extremely hostile towards the Bitcoin industry. And I was getting frustrated to an extent because I never saw anyone talk about it. And, you know, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Let me show the tweet. Alex Leishman, the CEO of River, says it's objectively true what I said. And I said, all right, I'm going to say it. No one is saying it. It has to be said at this point. Biden winning re-election would be terrible for Bitcoin in the US. His administration has been extremely hostile with the 30% proposed income tax. His party, specifically Elizabeth Warren, 20 senators are signed up for a bill that would be a de facto ban on self-custody in the United States. And of course, you know, this is the executive branch that, you know, gives the thumbs up for this type of enforcement by you know, criminalization, right? After all, self-custody is the revolution. And what Jack Mallers' father was arguing was the tax proposal also that the Biden administration has, which would be basically after a certain amount of money, it would be a 44% capital gains tax. That's an increase of more than 100%. It hasn't been that high in over 70 years, right? So, you know, they're printing money, sending money to fund foreign wars. They're attacking the Bitcoin industry. They're spending like drunken sailors. And then they just want to tax the hell out of their populace. You know, if someone wants to give up their citizenship, you know, 10 years later, they could still arrest you. Like, what is going on? Like, what is the relation? What is the true relationship between, you know, the individual and the state? What should it be? This is insane, right? 44. So like, think about it this way. You have to pay the inflation tax, right? You have to use Bitcoin. You have to use their money or else, you know, they put you in jail, right? Because they have legal tender laws. So you have to use money that is debasing. You have to pay the income tax because if you don't, you go to jail. They just spend money on anything they want, send billions to foreign wars. And, you know, when we find a technology that they just can't outright ban, they're extremely hostile towards it. I don't think that this was the original principles that this country was founded on, right? And again, they aren't arresting these people and they aren't enforcing these laws via legislation, right? Which is how the country was designed. They're doing it through enforcement, right? Now, the silver lining is that we've been here before. Here's Marty Bent from TFTC. Huge fan of his work, huge fan of his content. And he goes on to say, history is repeating. Bitcoin is in the middle of its form of the PGP wars. The arguments against it and the untenable solutions put forth by the government are the exact same. They wanted people to hold their PGP private keys with custodians. PGP won, Bitcoin can too. So what is he exactly referring to? He's referring to the so-called crypto wars. Attempts, unofficially dubbed the crypto wars, have been made by the United States and allied governments to limit the public and foreign nations' access to cryptography strong enough to thwart decryption by the national intelligence agencies, especially the National Security Agency. So again, like, you know, and here is this very famous shirt that I believe was worn at one of the court cases. And it says this shirt is classified as a munition and may not be exported from the United States or shown to a foreign national. RSA encryption, and he's just like literally, you know, wearing this stuff. And you could do the same thing, right? Like you can literally wear a 24-word seed phrase on your shirt and you can say like, I'm now an unlicensed money transmitter, apparently, right? But unlike the PGP wars, this is a much bigger deal. And the reason for that is simple. Bitcoin is a fundamental threat to the status quo in terms of the government's ability to be able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for. And it also gives the ability for individuals to opt out entirely of the existing system. So I think the fight for self-custody is not only going to ramp up from here, but I also think that they're going to fight like hell, like a wounded animal trapped into a corner. That's when they're the most vicious. Like, they're just not going to go gently into that good night and say, okay, you know what? You guys could use your own money, of which we can't debase. Washington, D.C., the whole government apparatus functions on being able to control not only the money flows, but also being able to, you know, just create money out of thin air. If a significant portion of the population decides to opt out of that entirely, yeah, I mean, like, that's going to create an issue, to say the least. Like just to say the least, that's going to create a problem, right? So yeah, buckle up. I'm gonna tell you guys what I told Opti when I called him, and I like had that 1,000-yard stare, and I called Opti and I was like, buckle up, Buttercup, because this is gonna get crazy. This is gonna get nasty, and you know, they're gonna pull out all the stops. They're gonna say whatever. They're gonna throw everything at the wall to see what sticks. And our weapon to fight against this is information. Our weapon is to just get the truth out there and get the message out there, and just highlight their absurdities, right? Like that shirt. You know, they did that in the 90s, the crypto wars, so to speak. It just highlighted the absurdities, right? Like, I'm going to put all the 2048, you know, words that can be used for a seed on a shirt and just wear it out. Like am I an unlicensed money transmitter? Like, look, it's not my fault that you guys made a bet that there was always going to be an intermediary for you guys to control and co-opt. Right? Like, you guys built your entire system based on that assumption. It's not my fault that now technology allows for mass scale peer-to-peer communications and mass scale peer-to-peer money transmission. That's not my fault. And also, it highlights the fact that you guys are a bunch of phonies. It's been a racket. Right? I'm going to say Ron Paul's quote, right? It's not a coincidence that the century of central banking is also the bloodiest century in human history. So enough is enough. It's time to try something different. Bitcoin fixes the world. And anyone who's trying to stop Bitcoin, or anyone who's an enemy of Bitcoin and self-custody, you're an enemy of freedom. And I'm going to go even harder than that. I'm going to say, not only you're an enemy of freedom, you're an enemy of humanity. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this?
Well, good rant. I do want to kind of troll that last sentence. They're not human, so no, I'm just trolling. We're starting off strong. We're ending the week strong. Anyways, what you're talking about, Nico, it really reminds me of just that classic meme of like, rules for thee, but not for me. And as I started the show, where it's becoming very clear to everyone, like, I know all of us have been very aware of this, but it's becoming very clear to even just average everyday people that there's a two-tier justice system. And if you are not a part of the in-group, then you probably can't get away with, and you probably can't get away with breathing at this point. Like, every one of us is a criminal now. And we're seeing that the powers that be have turned inward, and they're no longer looking to foreign people or foreign countries or foreign threats. They're turning inwards everywhere. They're looking domestically, and every single one of us now is a criminal, because they'll write new laws to make us all criminals. They'll rewrite laws to make us criminals, and that's where we are, guys. And I don't really want to bring this up too much, but I know we were watching that James O'Keefe interview yesterday, and his breaking news, it completely shows that the powers that be are completely unhinged, breaking laws left and right. And it doesn't matter if there is a piece of paper, if there's a law in place, they'll figure out ways to subvert it. And this is where we are, guys. Like, the state has been weaponized against the individual. And even now, like, corporations are individuals as well. But like, we're seeing that the laws are being inverted to basically clamp down and control on every single person on planet Earth. It's this, and this idea that you need to be surveilled to ensure good behavior is absolutely ridiculous. And I love that Jack Mahler's touched on it and how he framed it, you know. So you need to be able to selectively reveal yourself to the world. Like, privacy does not mean secrecy. And the fact that we're going down this dangerous path of making people that want to keep things private as criminals is absolutely insane. It's absolutely nuts where we are right now. And I think what's even more insane to me is that there's still a good majority of the population that are absolutely asleep at the wheel. And this is why we come on here, try to show the hypocrisy, why we continuously have content to talk about, is because Clown World just keeps accelerating. And it's getting pretty hairy. It's getting kind of scary right now. I'm not going to lie. And again, on the last thing, Jack Mahler's dad saying, like, if you're a student of history, and even a very superficial student of history, you know what happened when they try to control capital. It doesn't end well. And we're going down a very dangerous path right now. And I just really hope that people wake up in time, because I am team human. I'm always optimistic about humans. At times, I might be overly optimistic about humans, but I do think that the good guys win at the end. And all it takes is for good guys to coordinate, to come together and actually stop these people that are drunk on power. It's absolutely insane where we're seeing right now. And to reiterate a point we've been talking about here on the show for a while, this is an economic war, guys. This is an information war. And we're on the front lines. Every single one of us, all of us here, whether you're watching, whether it's us on this side of YouTube, every single one of us is on the front lines right now. And as we say all the time, it's Bitcoin or slavery. Like, you are having to make a choice right now, whether you want to bend the knee or stand up on your feet and fight. Like, this is where we are right now. And of course, as metaphorically fighting, it's not about, you know, calling violence on anyone. And let's hope it doesn't get to a kinetic war, or physical and kinetic, because it's going to get crazy. And hopefully we can right this ship, because if you succumb to the fear and you bend the knee to the fear tactics, this is going to be very bad for humans forever moving forward. Like, this is the most important time, not only in Bitcoin, but I think in humanity. Like, we were all born in this moment to be here right now, to be the ones waking people up. Like, this is the most important time in history, not just because we're in it, but because we see where this is headed. And man, it's absolutely insane. And, you know, you know me, I'm not political. I try to avoid politics as much as possible. And I'm not fully sure that Trump is better long-term, but in the short term, I think we can all agree that he's definitely better. But again, doubling down on my trolling, since I'm the comedic relief here, you know, let's just get Biden in here. Let's accelerate. Let's all vote for Biden 8 times and get this over with, and make them fight Bitcoin very directly. Cause man, I don't know. Part of me wants to like slow down the train wreck. The other part of me is like, hey, they're going to do what they're going to do, and we're going to win.
You're taking the Nolan.
Nolan. Let's all vote for Biden 12 times.
Let's just accelerate. But I mean, my comment also. My comment did it regard to Trump specifically, like RFK Jr.
No, I know,
great.
I totally agree. But RFK is not going to win. Let's be honest.
RFK,
maybe VP, look, maybe he'll steal votes.
RFK, Trump, you know, just like Biden, like not good, right? And then again,
vote
like,
with your pocketbook.
It's not necessarily that like, you know, these other guys are better, but like, you know, the other guys aren't proposing a 44% capital gains tax. The other guys' administration weren't attacking Bitcoin. I mean, and even RFK, like RFK. At the Bitcoin conference, he's like, I'll protect your right to self-custody. So, I mean, like, guys, like I don't care about left or right, Democrat, Republican. Like, I care about Bitcoin. Like, this is my vote, because I think over time, Bitcoin's going to make politics irrelevant, right? And if you have an active administration, you know, I don't care about their politics. They're attacking Bitcoin. Like, you know, like that's just the reality of it. And it's not being talked about. Like, that's the reality. They've been extremely hostile. This is not left, right, liberal, conservative. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that they've been very hostile towards the industry, and it has to be said. It has to be talked about, right? Anyways, Anders.
Wait. Before Anders goes, I'll pass it over to Anders. I want to say one last thing to what you said, Nico. Guys, no guy is here to protect you. You need to protect yourself. This is where we are right now. Protect yourself. Save in Bitcoin. Take it into custody. Do not wait for a savior. That's not how this is going to work out.
Exactly. I agree with that. Anyways, Anders, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you say. And I think it's not a matter of, it's not the governments necessarily that are acting as our overlords. You know, they seem to be puppets for the central banking. You know, as Scarface said, first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. Now, although we don't focus on the last part here, money is power. And the central bank has the power over all of us through that, and they can bribe and buy politicians. The military-industrial complex is doing the same. I mean, it's all one big racket, right? As you were talking about, with the most bloody decade or century ever. Last century is the century of central banking. So. Yeah, it's scary how they're coming at self-custody. It's scary how privacy is attacked. And it seems, 99% of people, maybe it's a little bit less, don't care or don't get it. But we are out here and fighting for essentially human rights. And they're coming really hard right now. So it's a battle.
100%.
Totally.
It's a battle, but I think we're gonna win. Just because, like they can't. I love the First Amendment. It created a situation where, like, if you're a tyrant, you're gonna have a hard time. And Bitcoin fundamentally at the end of the day is speech. Anyways, I do want to give a very special shout out to our new sponsor. And of course, I'm talking about the Pleb Party at Bitcoin Nashville 2024. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Are you going to the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville? Well, you definitely have to go to the Pleb Party by Anders. It's a 12-hour open bar from noon to midnight. The day before the biggest conference in the USA, July 25th. The last Pleb Party in Miami was sold out 8 days before. It was an absolute blast. The confirmed attendees are going to be Larry Lepard, Preston Pish, the entire Simply Bitcoin crew, including Nico, Opti, Rustin, James Lavish will be there, Robert Breedlove, Mark Moss, Pubby, and of course, Tatum Turnup. It's an amazing venue, a rustic automobile factory from 1910 with brick walls and tons of proof of work atmosphere. Over 1,000 plebs are expected. Get your tickets now because the prices do go up. It's going to be an absolute blast. The one in Miami was fabulous. The venue was great. Go to plebpartynashville.com today. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. We have a lot to talk about. Let's check it out.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, everybody, listen. You want to take self-custody, and what you could do is you could scan the QR code right now, and it will take you directly to the Foundation Devices website where you guys can get yourself a Passport hardware wallet. Completely open source, very beautiful, and incredibly easy to use. You could pair it up with the Envoy app, and it makes spending cold storage Bitcoin extremely easy. So go check out Passport by Foundation Devices. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Self-custody is the revolution. All right, everybody. So let's talk about what is happening over in Europe. The second largest European bank is buying Bitcoin ETF 13F SEC filings. It goes on to say, BNP Paribas, the second largest European bank, has purchased exposure to Bitcoin via a spot Bitcoin ETF, according to filings with SEC. The filings show that BNP Paribas bought BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. The U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs have seen immense success since launching earlier this year, crossing $200 billion in cumulative volume. Under regulations, large institutional investors managing over $100 million must disclose their quarterly holdings via 13F filings. After their highly anticipated debut, Bitcoin investors have been awaiting these filings to see which institutions are allocating to Bitcoin ETFs. Previous 2024 Q1 filings revealed purchases by asset managers, family offices, and banks like Park Avenue Securities, Inscriptions Capital, Wedbush Private Capital, and American National Bank. Now, BNP Paribas, Europe's second largest bank with over $600 billion in assets under management, has joined in. While BNP roughly $40,000 investment in the BlackRock, that's it. Holy shit, is relatively small. It's significant for one of the largest bank in Europe to start gaining exposure via an ETF. I mean, 40K. I mean, you know what's interesting though, is that like it's laughable, like the amount, like it's relatively to the size of the bank. All right, guys. Like what's going to be really funny is how that 40K investment is just going to outperform everything else the bank is holding. And of course, you know, no one is better than their incentives, and it creates a domino effect. I was very lucky enough to have a conversation with Saylor in Bitcoin Atlantis in Portugal. And one of the questions that I asked him was like, dude, you have proved this strategy. I didn't say dude, but I said, Michael, you've proved this strategy. It's very clear. Like, you're outperforming everything. Why isn't anybody following you? And he was just like, I don't really know. Like, you know, and I'm like, is it like a regulation thing? Is it like a thing? He's like, I don't know. Well, guys, this is a massive deal. We have Tesla, we have MicroStrategy, and now we have the second largest European bank, even though it's not a large amount, but I guarantee you Bitcoin's incentives and number go up is going to do its thing. And they're going to, of course, put in more. This is the next domino to fall. I can't emphasize enough how big of a deal this is in terms of institutional Bitcoin adoption. And this is extremely good for one side of the coin, which is the number go up aspect of that, right? And then the other side is the revolution aspect. This is indifferent to the revolution because they're just getting exposure to the ETF. But this is a big effing deal because as a number go up does its thing, as Bitcoin 10x's, 20x's from here, what do you think they're going to do? That very tiny allocation, they're going to say, you know what? It's probably a good idea to get some more. So they dip their toes in the best jacuzzi in town. And they're definitely gonna, put a foot in after this because, I mean, I've seen this before. I've seen this behavior before, especially with like older kind of high net worth individuals. They, they start with a small allocation. And then what tends to happen is, the number go up does its thing. They realize it's outperforming everything else in their portfolio, and then they start putting more. And then fast forward a couple years later, they end up aping in, right? So, this is a really good step in the right direction. This is the first kind of major domino to fall. This is a major bank. So it's definitely a step in the right direction. Anyways, guys, there's almost 1,000 of you guys watching live between all the platforms. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos and helps push the Bitcoin message forward. So smash that like button if you're enjoying the show so far. And I also want to update you guys on the lawfare. We touched upon it a little bit earlier on in the show, but I wanted to dive more into the details. So Binance, CZ was sentenced to 4 months in prison. He is going to be the wealthiest man to ever serve a prison sentence. The reason I'm saying this, guys, is because in 2008, 2009, you can say that a lot of laws were broken. A lot of Main Street got absolutely hammered, and Main Street bailed out Wall Street. No large notable banker went to jail for 2008 and 2009. Why? Because they're probably in government, dude. Like, you know, the head of the Treasury and the head of the Fed, usually the head of the Treasury, they usually were, you know, a lot of them worked at Goldman, right? So like they're part of their apparatus, they're part of the cartel, and they play by a different set of rules than everyone else. So listen, whatever you feel about, however which way you feel about CZ, okay, I get it. Bitcoiners, they don't like shitcoins. I get it. You don't like Binance. You think it's a shitcoin casino. I understand. But if you're rooting that a shitcoin entrepreneur, by the way, it's not SBF, right, that literally stole people's money, right, is going to jail for quote unquote money laundering. Mind you, all the banks, they launder the vast majority of the money. All they get is fines. Then you're lost in the sauce and you're not paying attention, right? You know, of course, like I said, CZ, shitcoiner, pushed a lot of shitcoins on people, wrecked a lot of people. You could definitely make all of those arguments. But listen, at the end of the day, I'm a libertarian. At the end of the day, I'm a capitalist, hardcore, like unapologetic capitalist. And like, dude, like if people want to buy shitcoins because that's what you want to do, like I'm telling you, you shouldn't, and you're going to wreck yourself. But if you want to gamble, like, dude, that's up to you. Like that's all you, man, you know? So yes, this happened the same day that they arrested Roger Ver. Again, very symbolic. This is all happening around the same time as the Samurai news, all happening around the same time as the FBI released that press release, basically saying that, hey, you know what, guys, you know, self-custody might be unlicensed money transmission, right? Come on, dude. Like, use common sense. It's symbolic. They're trying to send a message. They're letting you know, hey, we're still in charge over here. Roger Ver charged with mail fraud, tax evasion, and filing false tax returns. It goes on to say, Ver is accused of neglecting to file tax returns on asset sales and failing to pay a United States exit tax. On capital gains, he gave up his U.S. citizenship and set up businesses and secured citizenship in St. Kitts and Nevis. The indictment claims that by 2017, Ver's two U.S. unregistered memory dealers and Agilstar owned approximately 70,000 Bitcoin. In November 2017, Ver allegedly sold tens of thousands of them on cryptocurrency exchanges for approximately $240 million in cash. Even though Ver was not a U.S. citizen, he was still legally required to report to the IRS and pay tax on certain distributions, such as dividends from memory dealers and Agilstar, which were U.S. corporations. Ver allegedly concealed from his accountant that he had received and sold memory dealers and Agilstar Bitcoins that year. As a result, Ver's 2017 individual income tax return did not report any gain or pay any tax related to the distribution of memory dealers and Agilstar's Bitcoin to him. In total, Ver is alleged to have caused a loss to the IRS of at least $48 million in the indictment. So again, two things could be true at the same time. And I don't want you guys to get lost in the sauce, okay? There's an exit tax. It's the law, right? The other thing that can be true at the same time. He's not a U.S. citizen. He gave up his citizenship. He's still required to report to Uncle Sam. And they literally arrested him in a foreign country saying you didn't pay taxes to us. Meanwhile, you know, Congress is sending billions of dollars overseas, spending 1.7 trillion dollars more than they collect in tax revenue. And you know, if you take a look, I'm not going to name any names, but if you take a look at some of these senators and congressmen and women, they happen to be some of the best traders on planet Earth. So, I mean, like, rules for thee, but not for me. If you're part of the political elite class, if you're part of the cartel, you could do it. If, you know, you're outside of the cartel class, nah, dude, you're an absolute criminal. We're going to put you in a box, bro. So, like, yeah, like he broke the law. Like, you can't, you know, allegedly he broke the law. Like, you can't deny that. Like, that is the law. But, you know, I have a right to criticize an exit tax. Like, that is nuts. That is crazy. And mind you, like, and this is not discussed about, like, he took the risk, right? Entrepreneurs take the risk. They don't reward you when you fail, but they want a cut of it when you don't fail. It even got to the point where even Peter McCormack, right, where he had a very hard stance on that. So he's like, yeah, guys, you know what? You're right. You know, tax is theft. Because the way that it, like, if you just use common sense and you break it down, right? Like, here's Walker America. It says the United States of America holds its citizens prisoner. If you want to leave but do not pay taxes on your unrealized capital gains, they will find you and put you in a box. Meanwhile, the government prints money out of thin air and sends your tax dollars to fund foreign wars. A lot of confusion about whether the government is actually totalitarian that would tax your unrealized gains. Sadly, it is. Quote, all property of a covered expiate is deemed sold for its fair market value on the day before the expiration date. And now connect this with, now I want you guys to connect this with what happened with Jack Mallers' dad. Like, and the recent administration proposed 44% capital gains tax. And then the 67% capital gains tax in Canada. Like, what are we getting for that? You take all the risk, you build a business, you know, you speculate, you make an investment. If it goes south, fuck you. If it goes north, you make some money. Give me some of that. And then what do you get in return for this? And remember, this has been a regulatory creep. They've psyoped people into believing into this because when they initially instituted the federal income tax in 1913, which coincidentally happens to be the same year that they established the Federal Reserve, you know what the income tax was? 1%. 1%. And then over years, what do? Because they can't convince people, hey, we're going to start off with 39%, the top income. We're going to start off with, no. They say, it's only going to be 1%. Then they normalize it in people's minds. The Bank Secrecy Act, same thing, normalization. When they passed the Bank Secrecy Act, which basically makes it so that every $10,000 transaction is reported to the government, in 1970, when they passed that, the Bank Secrecy Act had the equivalent of $80,000 worth of purchasing power today. So everyone in 1970, it's $80,000. That's a pretty big amount. The number stayed the same. Now it's $10,000. Now in the Inflation Reduction Act, which they tried to squeeze this in, they were even lowering that so that every $600 transaction had to be reported. Meanwhile, the Pentagon, unaudited, failed its audits. It's like billions of dollars of unaccounted stuff. When they pulled out of Afghanistan, they left billions of dollars worth of equipment. Right, to the people that we were fighting, supposedly, that Americans died fighting against, and they left billions of dollars of equipment so that they can use it themselves. So it's kind of like we're just going to do whatever the F we want about the money. We're going to spend money we don't have. We're going to print the difference, and all you guys have to foot the bill, or else we're going to use our monopoly on violence to put you in a box. Like, you know, the law is the law, but what I think is unjust is that they don't even follow their own rules, right? So anyways, I do want to end it with this because once again, you know, sovereign individual hits the nail on the head. The authors predicted that with the rise of this new cyberspace and consequently cyber money, it will become harder for nation states to collect taxes from its citizens. They compared the state to a farmer keeping cows on a field to be milked, but that soon the cows will have wings. They predicted that the government, to collect taxes from its citizens in this type of society, it would have to violate human rights, even in traditionally civil countries, would have to resort and turn nasty. Lacking their accustomed scope to tax and inflate, which are essentially the same thing, governments, even in traditionally civil countries, will turn nasty. As income tax becomes uncollectible, older and more arbitrary methods of extraction will resurface. The ultimate form of withholding tax, the de facto or even overt hostage taking, will be introduced by governments desperate to prevent wealth from escaping beyond their reach. Unlucky individuals will find themselves signaled out and held to ransom in an almost medieval fashion. Businesses that offer services that facilitate the realization of autonomy by individuals will be subject to infiltration, sabotage, and disruption. Samurai, right? Arbitrary forfeiture of property, already commonplace in the United States, where it occurs 5,000 times a week, will become even more pervasive. Governments will violate human rights, censor the free flow of information, sabotage useful technologies, and worse. This is the separation of money and state. That is what's happening. You have a literally front row view to all this. But you know what, guys? I think we're going to win. And I think we're going to win because incentives are more powerful than coercion. And Bitcoin has the best incentives the world has ever seen. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, brother? Are you ready to move to El Salvador?
No, not yet. I still love America. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving until it gets even more worse. But hey, you know how it goes, guys. But Nico, hold on. You asked a rhetorical question. And Nico, come on, bro. Think about the roads. Sheesh. What about my roads, Nico? What are we going to do if they can't steal money from us? We won't have roads. What's going on here, Nico? You're such a radical. Anyways, I'm trolling, guys. Bad joke. Anyways, the sovereign individual is so prophetic. Like it's absolutely incredible. That book was written, what was it, like 97? And we're, I don't know, 27 years down the line, and it's almost like a blueprint. I love sci-fi movies growing up and sci-fi books and all that stuff. And as someone that loved those books, I'm always kind of reminded on the idea, like, these were supposed to be cautionary tales, not actually blueprints for what's going on. And it seems like the sovereign individual is kind of the same thing. It's like, guys, this is what's going to happen. It's going to happen. And here we are. We're just watching it happen in slow motion. And I just really hope maybe more people read the book or more people wake up to what's actually happening in the world. But anyways, going back to the BNP Paribas Bank. I think this is an incredible milestone. We had corporations getting into Bitcoin, the Tesla, the MicroStrategy. We had nation states, which is El Salvador, and there's a lot of rumors of more nation states making Bitcoin strategy, Bitcoin playbooks. Of course, the individual out there. And now we have a huge bank holding Bitcoin. So, of course, they're not even a whole coiner yet. So that's kind of the silver lining here, I was kind of hoping the banks would get in a little later than this, but hey, it is what it is. Who am I? I'm just a guy on YouTube talking about Bitcoin, but I think it's still a very important moment in time. Again, remember the Titanic rant that I had yesterday. Like, these institutions move very slowly before they fully go full degen mode. So yeah, they're just kind of dipping their toes, but it's still a milestone. I think going down in history, BNP will be considered the first, actual bank to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, or rather, get some spot Bitcoin ETF approval. Of course, it's captured Bitcoin, all that stuff. And it really kind of tying it all into everything we're talking about today. It really leads into the idea that they want to incentivize you guys to save in the captured Bitcoin. Hence why we always say, no, you want to hold your own keys. This is the best way to actually hold some Bitcoin. This is the way that we win. If you don't take Bitcoin into custody, if you don't hold your own keys, then they can continue to manipulate the markets. And this is how we win. When enough of us are holding and transacting in Bitcoin, all of this will be moot. It will all be irrelevant. So, on the flip side, as I was saying, as the toxic Bitcoiner here, I was just kind of hoping this would take a little longer, but hey, I'm sure some of our audience has bigger stacks than the second largest bank in France. So absolutely awesome. What was their holdings? Like less than half a coin or something like that. kind of interesting. All right. And then kind of moving on to the other stuff. Look, I might get trolled here. This might be an unpopular take on the show, but not going to lie, you know, CZ basically becoming a billionaire and getting a slap on the wrist for 4 months. It seems like a pretty good trade. I'm not going to lie. Man. Oh my funny, goodness. Dude. Wow. And then, you know, on the Roger Ver stuff, like, I'm never going to applaud the state. I'm not the biggest fan of Roger Ver. It seems like, you know, it adds to the meme of don't shit coin. It's bad for you. I kind of reading in a little bit of what happened. That seems to be the case. You know, selling his Bitcoin for a big holding of Bcash and them retroactively going backwards to basically say, you know, Bitcoin was worthless, but now what was the actual wording they said? The IRS missed out on their gains. It's like, you're a slave, you're a tax slave, and we're going to get her cut no matter what. So, you know, it's very unfortunate. It's absolutely terrifying for every single one of us Bitcoiners. But in full transparency, I knew about the exit tax, but I didn't know you had to continue paying for years afterwards. Like, that makes me not want to go anywhere else. Like, I'm not going to El Salvador. You're crazy. But I think this is the real silver lining here, especially considering everything we've seen in the last week or two. This is very clearly a warning shot. This is very clearly an attempt to scare people out of holding Bitcoin. This is them trying to make a point. And man, like, again, it's heating up, and we knew this was going to happen. And man, it's one of those things where, like, Nico called me and we were on the phone. We're like, oh my goodness, like, buckle up, Buttercup. Things are starting to heat up. It's getting crazy. It's definitely them trying to send a message and scare people away from holding Bitcoin, transacting the Bitcoin, which means we're just winning so hard. Like, to me, this is a blatant, all the things we've seen in the last week, it's all very, very obvious that they are terrified. They're desperate. And the more they attack Bitcoin and Bitcoiners, the more I know that they are just absolutely terrified of Bitcoin. So continue to hodl, continue to take your Bitcoin into custody while it's still legal here in the States. You're not breaking laws. You know, privacy is good, all that stuff. But man, it's getting crazy. It's definitely getting crazy as a Bitcoiner. So man, I don't know. I can't really add more to that. But Anders, what's your thoughts on all this stuff?
Yeah, I think Nico touched on something that I always found very interesting, and that was that none of the bankers that all work together on the government side, Treasury, the Fed, or the big bankers that got people wrecked. People lost their homes, they lost their fortunes, they went bankrupt. And then what I never forget is that the banks got bailed out with hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and just a year after, they started getting massive bonuses. These banks that got people wrecked got, once again, you know, phenomenally rich, the people running the show, with no consequence whatsoever. So we have to take things in our own hand. Everything is a racket. We're being abused. The lifeblood is being sucked out of the normal person. If you're not part of the power structure, starting with central banks, government, military industrial complex, big pharma, you're just going to be a slave to the system forever. The only way we can opt out is Bitcoin, where they can't steal our wealth. That's what they're trying now. That's why we're seeing the attacks and self-custody. But that's the only way that we can get out of that slavery situation that we essentially are in. So yeah.
Love it, bro.
100%, man. 100%. Things are crazy. Things are heating up. Buckle up. You know, this is the separation of money and state, guys. Like, this is a big deal. Anyways, guys, I'm excited to get into the culture, to talk about the pleb party. Let's end the show on a happy note, right? on a celebration, because it has been a little bit dark these last couple days. But before we do that, I do want to give a very special shout, of course, to our sponsor, And I'm talking the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Join the 10,137 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. The Orange Pill app is the Bitcoin social. Find local Bitcoiners, events, and merchants. It's a very clever filtration system, so you'll only find fellow Bitcoiners on the app. And also, I might add, that if you go to a new city, or you move to a new city and you don't know any Bitcoiners around you, has a geographical feature. So it will show you the Bitcoiners that are around you. You can send them a message. It's the #1 resource for creating Bitcoin only events. And also you can join the Simply Bitcoin group chat on the Orange Pill app, which is absolutely popping off. You could check the link in the video/podcast description, and you could scan the QR code to download the Orange Pill app today. All right, everybody, let's get to the culture.
The Daily Culture.
All right, everybody. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Kaboom. They are the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. You can check out their racks by scanning the code or checking the link in the video description. That will take you directly to their Telegram marketplace, where you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent. You can also sell your mining equipment with Kaboom Racks. You can access their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your mining equipment with Kaboom Racks. This is where I personally buy my Bitcoin mining ASICs. Check out Kaboom Racks today. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. All right, Opti, it is all yours, my friend.
Let's go. All right. Well, we got Anders live on the show. So we're going to talk about the pleb party in Nashville. And I'll just give you the floor, bro. Let's talk about it. Maybe let's talk about the one in Miami to give people kind of the context of what they can get into. And then we'll get into all the details of what they can expect in Nashville.
Sure. I mean, well, I want to start all the way back in Los Angeles with the first one that I organized. That was before the first Pacific Bitcoin, and around 400 people came through, and it was a lot of fun. I think we talk about it all the time. One thing is being on Twitter or other social media as a Bitcoiner, but meeting in real life is where the magic happens, and that's all I wanted to do. Really facilitate that, we can get together and have a beer, drink, whatever. And the feedback I got from that, which kind of surprised me. I didn't think about it, but I was very happy to hear that everyone told me that the conference had become was a lot better for them, because they now, when they entered the next day at the conference, they already had a bunch of friends there because they had met the night before. Opportunity, like in LA, Larry Lepard, James Lavish, Nelly Brunel, Crypto Cobble, Mark Moss, Jeff Booth showed up, and it gives people a chance to say cheers and have a conversation with some of these people that they don't have at the conference, because there's 20,000 people and they're hard to get hold of. And Miami was really taking it a step further. Since I lost money on doing something for free, I thought, okay, let me charge a ticket, because then we can do something more. And that led to this amazing rooftop in Miami with it was actually an outdoor cinema. So there's a cinema screen where I decided to run an hour of the best Bitcoin Twitter video memes, just run and repeat, which people loved. That was great and fun. It was a lot of fun putting it together. I was just, dying laughing for a couple of days there. And again, a lot of, the people that we know showed up. I would say Michael Saylor being the biggest name in this space. He showed up, which was awesome. He came to hang out with the plebs. So people got some great experiences. And not only, pleb to pleb, but also some of these, I don't know what we call them, big plebs or whatever, well-known content creators that are amazing minds and nice to speak with. So yeah, that happened in Miami, and it's really based on Poppy and I starting Toxic Happy on YouTube in 2020, doing YouTube for 1 year, then going on Spaces, and a lot of these well-known people go, then you hang out, and it's the same now for Nashville as well. there's a really nice show up, so you can have a drink and talk to them. This time, I decided to make it a 12-hour party. A couple of years ago, I found out that my grandfather was an epic party thrower, and he did with his friends 12-hour parties, and people loved it, and they could party nonstop. So I'm like, yeah, that actually feels like I have that in my genes, because I don't want to stop a party if it's 7 hours, like in Miami. So I decided to make it noon to midnight. It's open bar. It's catered food. So, once you're there, you don't have to get your wallet out unless you want to tip someone. Yeah, it's going to be a blast. I found an amazing venue in Nashville, which is 8-minute Uber drive from the conference venue, called Marathon Music Works. It was an automobile factory in 1910 that was built, one of those 1,000 automobile factories that went bankrupt before, things really kind of consolidated in that industry. So it's a really cool building, lots of different rooms. There's a backstage room where I'm thinking to put a DJ. There's like sidebars everywhere. It's just awesome, like brick walls. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm looking forward. People can get there. Thanks for putting it on the screen. Can get their ticket on plebpartynashville.com. Right now, the tickets are $210. But every time I've sold out a batch of tickets, then the price notches up. Yeah, don't be like in Miami where it was sold out 8 days before, and people wanted to pay anything they could to get in. Companies, willing to swing the big corporate credit card, but the problem was the fire regulation. So we couldn't let in more people. So yeah, I mean, get your ticket. It's going to be amazing. A lot of people actually, a lot of my friends are saying they're going to come to the party, but without going to the conference. So I think a lot of people are going to a lot of the side events this year. Yeah, I see you picked up something on the Eventbrite site there. This is go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
No, it's just like people find it funny with it. This is a Bitcoin only event. Anyone shilling shitcoins, NFTs will be escorted out of the venue with no refund of tickets, but with a few acronyms like GFY and HFSP. And I think Gary Leland is doing a great job with BitBlock Boom. And if he sees these things, he refund people and they get told to leave. But if that's your agenda, it's just out, and I'm not going to deal with admin. But thank you for supporting. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the Miami one. Was great, and the venue was amazing, and I got there a little bit later, and I was already kind of like tipsy and stuff, and just having a great time. And it was surreal because I grew up there. That's where I grew up. I grew up on Miami Beach. I grew up on South Beach. So the fact that you guys were throwing it there was like wow, this come full circle. This is crazy, right? So the venue that you found, the party, the atmosphere, the people, the conversations was absolutely incredible. So when I heard that you're throwing a second one, I got incredibly excited. This is the Bitcoin side event that you want to go to if you're going to be in Nashville, Bitcoin 2024. You don't want to miss this. This is where everybody is going to be at. I mean, everybody. Like, we just mentioned a few big names, but what tends to happen is like people start having FOMO, right? And what you don't want to happen is you end up going because you're like, oh, I'll just wait. I'll just, I won't buy tickets, or maybe this isn't for me. But what's going to happen is you're going to be in Nashville, right? You're going to have nothing to do that night, and you're going to text your friends, and your friends are going to be like, I'm at the pleb party. And then at that point, guess what, bro? There's no more tickets, and they're not going to let you in the door, right? So like, I know how this stuff works. I proof of stake the fuck out of my entry last year because they tried to stop me at the door, and I was like, no, I'm Nico, and I waved at Anders and they let me in, right? So like, yes, dude, and then that's why I'm telling you guys that warning, right? Like, they're gonna lock the door, all your friends are gonna be there, and you're not gonna be able to get in. So you want to get your tickets there. Opti and I are going to be there. Hopefully Wine will be there. I saw him in the chat. Rustin's going to be there. Our whole crew is going to be there. No, Nico's not going to be able to get you in. I barely got myself in. I think I almost got beat up by the bouncer. Thank God Anders saw my hand. Because if not, you know, they wouldn't have let me in. So yeah, guys, like you gotta, you know, you gotta get your tickets quickly. I can't emphasize how fun these things are. Our event are 12 hours. You said all inclusive. Could you go a little bit into that? What does that mean, Anders?
I mean, you order anything you want from the bar. And you know, you have your you know, whatever cocktail is your go-to. It's there's a bunch of different beers. You know, it's a normal full bar really. And then I'll make sure there's food throughout, which probably also is a good idea for people not to get, you know, overly intoxicated, to make sure there's also some food in your stomach. So I mean, essentially, that day you don't have to buy lunch, you don't have to buy dinner, you don't have to buy drinks for lunch or for dinner or in between or in the, it's all there, it's all included. And right now it's $210, but they do go up. And yeah, I would say, Nico, what you brought up, one of the best selling points, and it is that people get to meet you and Opti and Rostin and the whole crew, and it's going to be the chance to go and pat you on the back and say cheers.
Yeah,
Love
man.
it.
And also, like, I wanted to mention too, is that it's not like the conference, like, because look, when you know, you want to meet some of your favorite Bitcoiners, like whether they wrote a really good, you know, article or book or something like that. What tends to happen, especially at the bigger conferences, is that like they're going, like there's 1,000 people that are lined up, you know, wanting to get their autograph, figuratively, not literally, but like, you guys know what I'm saying. Like they want to meet, they want to shake their hand. It's pretty difficult, right? So the awesome part about these like side events and the pleb party specifically is that like people are going to have their defenses down. It's a party, bro. Right. Like it's literally the definition of a social it's like a social gathering. It's not like, oh, the stage and the this and that. It's a different type of vibe. And then that creates an opportunity where you can go up to some of these Bitcoiners and start a conversation with them. And, you know, they'll speak with you. They'll talk to you, you know, and it's a great networking event as well. So yeah, Pleb Party's absolutely awesome. Get your tickets before they sold out. plebpartynashville.com. Opti.
Yeah, I want to chime in here. First and foremost, can confirm Anders knows how to throw a good party. Every time I've been to your parties, I have probably way too much fun. It's so good to hang out with friends. And 12 hours is a marathon, so that's going to be epic. But just to be clear for all the audio listeners out there, Anders, how many slots do you have and what days are they exactly?
How many slots I have?
Yeah, how big is this party going to be? And then what day is the party?
July 25th.
So it's July 25, and there is a capacity for 1,000 people there at any one given time. And yes, you're right, it's a marathon party, and the building is called Marathon Music Works. So it's all set to be the biggest and the best so far. I know Miami, I got so much positive feedback, and this one is the one to let's go.
It's going to be lit. It's going to be lit.
Absolutely, man. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. Can't wait for the Pleb Party Nashville. Pleb Party 2.0. It's going to be absolutely awesome. I do want to thank Anders for joining us on Simply Bitcoin Live today. You know, sharing with the audience, the Pleb Party. It's going to be a great celebration. Guys, I look, I know a lot of people hang out on Bitcoin Twitter, and I was one of those people that, you know, I was like, look, like, you know, I know you guys, like, you know, whatever. But it was actually Surfer Jim that was like, no, dude, like, you have to meet Bitcoiners in person. And it was actually me and Opti that, you know, like, that's like how me and Opti met for the first time in person, right? So like, great things happen in Meet Space. Not everything is through cyberspace. Meet space is important. You're a human being after all, not a computer yet. And yeah, it's going to be a great time. So go to plebpartynashville.com. Get your tickets quickly before they sold out. And I do want to give a shout out. Thank you, Anders, for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be in your show or to meet you guys in real life and hang out. So thank you, Nico and Opti, for having me for sure.
I appreciate it, dude. Anyways, guys, that was our show. I'm your host, Nico. This is my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields. Always optimistic. Maybe today slightly nihilistic. But anyways, we are Simply
It's
Bitcoin.
realistic Fields today.
We love you all. We'll be back tomorrow on Friday for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin. Anders, thank you once again for joining us. Peace out, everybody. Take care.
So it was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, on a mission to enable independence.